In the name of the God who is God over death, God of life, and God of resurrection. Please be seated. Music is one of those things that we know changes our chemistry. I suspect Bill knew that. If he didn't know it, as that research is actually somewhat more recent, though that experience is hardly recent, he certainly felt it. Reading Bill's own account of his life is reading the account of somebody who was deeply engaged in the world. Even if from a fairly intellectual and theoretical perspective, the way in which he engaged the world was at a molecular level. It was not just because of what he researched and taught to his students for decades, but his experience of music as a way of connecting himself with others, with God, with the very creation, is a molecular experience. Our bodies vibrate with the sounds that surround us. Our bodies vibrate with the presence of those who are around us. We know this as the fields of chemistry and physics deepen their understanding of how molecules and atoms actually work. We are vibrating beings, and our rhythm is the rhythm of the universe. And music is one of those places where we attune ourselves and in our bodies to the world that is around us and to one another. Singing, we are literally resonating together, breathing together in rhythm and in pattern. Strangely enough, this is the hope, I think, of the resurrection. The resurrection is one of those pieces of Christian theology that I think in the Pacific Northwest we like to play down just a little bit. And yet there is something about the bodily resurrected Christ that we know walks through doors, cannot be shut out. Jesus' body vibrates in a different way and engages with material in a different way, and we are invited into that resonance. The resonance of a God who created the whole world, all of creation, and this little slice that we know in order that the entire universe resonates with its creator. This image is an image of the Anastasis. It is an icon painted over the Kora Chapel in what is now Istanbul. And it is an image of Jesus, the one in the center, surrounded by that blue and white light of eternity, reaching into the grave and pulling up on one side Eve and on the other side Adam. This is an ancient theology of the resurrection and of salvation, that promise that all of creation represented in those first human beings created are grasped in the resurrection and pulled up into a new resonance and a new life with God. Jesus stands on the broken gates of Hades, and you can see the locks and the keys strewn about, shattered after 3 days in the tomb. We will say this in the Apostles' Creed that we say later today, 3 days in the tomb and all the dead were raised. That is the promise, this strange promise that our bodies will rise again and be with God in eternity. Friends, I don't know what the resurrection looks like. What I know is that most of our bodies decay and die. Bill's ashes are here, cremated. His body is no longer in a form that we connect with at all. But the promise of God from the very beginning of creation is that all of creation is meant to abide with God. Our physics and our chemistry may not quite have caught up to what that might look like. But I am fascinated by those ways in which we understand our bodies as themselves vibrating energy that connects together, that vibrates with those around us in ways that we may not understand, but the confidence that we express today in this service, which is both a service of grief at the loss of the one who shaped us, the one who sang with us for 53 years, the one who raised us and spent far more than 53 years in a shared life together. We grieve the loss of Bill, and we celebrate the promise that Bill has not left us any more than Jesus has left us. That somehow in this image of promise, all of creation is brought into the fullness of God, and the joy of singing together that we experience now and that we have experienced for decades with Bill does not end today. When you sing one of these hymns that we have sung today in a month or 3 months or 5 years, it is possible that you will be brought back to this moment. It is also possible that when you sing one of the hymns that we have sung today, or you hear one of the pieces played on the organ, or you sing or hear the Tallis piece that we will hear later on today, you will remember Bill. You'll remember that he complained that it wasn't done right somewhere. When the psalm is chanted wrong and the refrain is in the wrong place, you'll hear Bill grumbling, that's not where it's supposed to be. Or you'll smell him next to you. That whiff of his professorial jacket. That moment of remembering the brush of his beard against your face as perhaps you hugged him or gave him a kiss. You will remember in the resonances of the music that he loved and that we loved, you will remember the presence of Bill. Some of those memories may not always be good. I know that the end of Bill's life was hard for him and for those around him. I loved that little bit about the brain and the mind in his eulogy. Our brains in our bodies as they are now sometimes betray us, even as our minds continue in some way that we don't understand. But you will sing with Bill now and in the future. When you hear Purcell, you will sit with Bill and remember how much he loved Henry's music. That is the promise of the resonance of all creation. We are marked by who Bill was, the way he sang, the way he vibrated, the way he connected with us, marks us forever. It shaped who we were growing up alongside him. It shaped who we were as we argued with him. It shaped who we are as we hear his joyful singing and his grumbling complaint. I didn't know Bill very long, but what I remember is a man who smiled every time he received the Eucharist. A man who smiled when there was music. sitting there in the back with his headphones on because too much sound was agitating for him. So sensitive to sound that it brought him joy as well as grief and anguish. But I remember a man who, in the midst of his brain failing him, was gentle and smiled. Friends, the promise of this faith that many of us share and many of us struggle with is that today is not the end. That just as we sing together with one another today, we sing in the presence of Bill and all of those who have gone before us, and friends, all of those who will come after us. We sing in that blue and white eternity of God, where there is no beginning and there is no end, because we and all that God has created live and abide with our Creator. As we sing today, as we celebrate a meal together today, know that Jesus has welcomed Bill, that Bill abides with Jesus, and that we abide with Jesus. And in the promise of the resurrection of all creation, we will one day raise our voices with Bill again. Amen.